class, CMSC734, Information Visualization. We are Team 4. That includes myself, Sura, Simge, and Srividya. You'll see our names in the full presentation, but I want to get right into our tool, which we've named Vulineage. Um, it tries to be a little self-explanatory, but let's jump right into the tool. You'll notice this is the Git repo. It is public, so feel free to look into it. I think we have a pretty good project set up here. So anyway, let's jump over to our tool that we've built, choosing Docker image versions with security in mind. So again, I don't want to give too much of the intent away, but you'll notice there's this controller box on the top. This is just a little light mode, dark mode toggle. Over here, we want to select a Docker repository. So if you don't know what Docker is, um, I'm going to give some brief context just so we're all on the same page. So Docker and Docker images is a way to take a snapshot of a machine and all its dependencies, all the software that's currently installed on it, and package that up in what's called a Docker image. And that Docker image generally might contain like an application or a piece of software. PostgreSQL is a database, right? And you can have a Postgres, we can even search this, there's a Postgres repo. And if I were to take down the Postgres repo, Docker repo, and maybe a tag like latest, and we'll get through it and do examples, but we would get the latest commit to that Docker repository Postgres. And so it's very similar. They track changes very similarly to Git, where you'll have a Git branch called main, and there might be like the Postgres repository, just like this, right? And so you will select a tag like latest, and let's just jump in. And let's select a tag latest, which can be equated to the main branch of a Git repository. And so every time someone makes changes to this machine snapshot, this image, or this Docker repository, anytime somebody makes changes to like what the latest tag is pointing to, um, that will have some amount of vulnerabilities associated when it's scanned, and uh, inside of this latest tag, you might even see its children lineages or branches that are contain the same commits as latest. And so you can imagine or think of latest as the uh, lineage that contains all commits underneath. And then lineage 3 has all these children, which all the commits in, for example, this guy, 3.14.2. Um, it's funny because it's 3.14. And so all the commits against this tag are also inside of 3, and all the commits against 3 are also inside latest. So that's the way to think of this hierarchical structure. You'll also notice some green outlines, and that just indicates you'll see this very bottom line on this tooltip. Lineage status is active, and that's all this green one means. You might not want to choose a lineage where it's marked as end of life, right? But anyway, so we can also hover over these boxes, and you'll notice the bottom graph is being manipulated here. And what it is the very beginning date of a lineage. So when did this lineage get created? Uh, and the first commit against like lineage 3, and then the very last commit, and that is this shaded region down here, this purple box. And we've tried to align the colors of the boxes with that, so I think a nice touch. So let's click on a better example, and this gets a large chunk of our graph. So just coming from the bottom here, as we scan across, we notice this tooltip and of course these line plots going through. And what these are, you'll see this legend, low, medium, high, critical, unknown, indicating the severity of vulnerabilities associated with the image at this point in time. And so this is a discrete graph. You'll notice it doesn't, my tooltip doesn't update while I'm in these intermediate spaces, but it does update when I cross a threshold of a image date. So that was November 12th, 2021, and as we go down here, we see the low is at 0, medium at 6, highs at 14, criticals at 1, unknown at 0. And I can flow through here, get my next one. This was at November 24th, 2021. And did anything get lower? Doesn't look like it. But here, the high vulnerabilities got a little lower. And so what we're observing is that it's actually pinning to the closest to the right. Okay. So yeah, that's what we get there. And I think that's a pretty good explanation of what we have here. I definitely don't want to go too long. So I'll just describe one last thing, which is our server setup. Inside of AWS, we have an EC2 instance, and that is running the database, that 50 gigabyte database with like 2 or 3 years worth of this Docker information and all the vulnerabilities associated with each of these images. Um, and you can see all the server config that we put on the EC2 instance in here. There's a database server which connects to our SQLite database.db file. And when we make posts to this server, we will get the query out of the body. We'll read from our database, which is just a function up here. We added a cache to hopefully make uh, high hit rate pieces a little bit faster. So we execute the query, fetch all the rows, return as a dictionary, and then our front end, using D3 and everything, of course, can parse that and do some stuff like this. And so I hope you have a pleasure using our tool, Vulineage. We've had a pleasure making it. So thank you and good night.